Welcome to Recap King. In this video, we will explain the Equalizer 2. This movie tells the story of a former United States Marine. He is very reliable and is a very intelligent intelligence agent trying to reveal the truth about the death of his co-worker. What is the riddle behind this murder case? Let's find out in the Equalizer 2. The Equalizer 2 begins by showing a middle-aged man with the appearance of a Muslim named Robert McCall who is reading a book on a train traveling to the city of Istanbul, Turkey. In the same train, there is a family consisting of the father, mother, and a young daughter. A few moments later, the father went to another carriage and Robert was watching him quietly from behind. Not long after, Robert immediately followed the man to a food carriage. After Robert met the man, they chatted with each other. The man then asked Robert what the purpose of him coming to Turkey was. While making a drink, Robert replied that he had come to Turkey to find a Turkish man who had married an American woman and had a daughter. He then explained to the man that the Turkish man he was looking for was an abusive person and had hurt his own wife and forcibly brought his daughter to Turkey. Hearing Robert's explanation, the man finally realized that the man Robert was looking for was him. He then ordered some of his men who happened to be in the train to beat up Robert. Robert, who was previously a former United States Marine soldier who was very skilled and intelligent, showed his fighting skills in this scene. As the men's men approached Robert, he quickly threw the teapot and cup he held at some of them. He then hit all of the men's men one by one until they were all defeated. In a short time, Robert had returned to the man he was after who was sitting in a train. Robert then sat down, repairing his worn sleeves from the previous fight, and told the man to choose whether he wanted to feel the usual pain or the excruciating pain. The scene changes to the moment where Robert has arrived in a city by riding a black sedan. Robert's appearance and clothes had completely changed. He no longer had a beard or dressed all in white as before. That morning, Robert was working as a taxi driver heading to an office building to pick up an old man. After the old man left the office, he immediately got into Robert's taxi and ordered him to leave as quickly as possible. On the other hand, in a city in Belgium called Brussels, there was a man named Calbert who had just come home from work. After he put down his coat, Calbert immediately headed to the dining room to have dinner with his wife. But unexpectedly, when he arrived in the dining room, he found his wife sitting in fear with her face full of scars from persecution. Shortly after, several men appeared and one of the men shot Calbert's wife in front of him. After that, Calbert was also brutally murdered by these unknown men. Apparently, some of the foreign men who barged into Calbert's house were errands who had been paid to kill Calbert and his wife. The scene returns to Robert, who is still doing his job as an online taxi driver. That night, Robert received an order from a man to take a woman who seemed in pain back to her apartment. Not long after, Robert returned to the apartment of the man who had ordered it. He then told the man that he had taken the previous female passenger to a hospital because the woman had serious injuries to her body. It turns out that Robert deliberately came to the man's apartment to chase after all the men in the room because he was sure that all these men had hurt the woman he had taken to the hospital. In less than 29 seconds, Robert managed to beat and kill all the men in the room. After the incident, Robert returned home to his apartment. When he arrived at his apartment, he looked surprised because one of his female colleagues named Susan was already in his apartment. Realizing this, Robert immediately hugged Susan as if they had not seen each other for a long time. Susan is one of the best CIA agents who is currently busy investigating a husband and wife murder case with another colleague named Dave. The next day, Susan and Dave and several other members of the investigation came to Calbert's house, which had been ravaged and stained with blood from the previous murder. They investigate the murder scene and find clues to who killed Calbert and his wife. That night, when Susan returned to her hotel room, suddenly some unknown men attacked her from behind and slammed her body against the wall. Susan tried to fight the two foreign men using all her strength, but the two men mercilessly made Susan helpless. After that, Robert, who was talking with a young boy who was painting on an apartment wall, suddenly received a call from Brian. Brian is Susan's husband, and he calls Robert to inform him that at this time Susan has been killed by an unknown man in her hotel room in Belgium. Hearing the news, Robert immediately left for Washington, D.C. to meet Brian and ask him about the chronology of events. Meanwhile, two men in Belgium who are suspected to be the people who have been paid to kill Susan are seen relaxing and having fun. Shortly after, they heard the sound of a cell phone ringing. When one of them answered the cell phone, an explosion suddenly destroyed their room and killed both men. It turns out that the person who deliberately created the explosion to kill the two men was the gang of men who had previously killed Calbert and his wife. The scene changes to the moment where Robert is investigating Susan's death files to find out who the person who killed his partner was. Robert managed to find some CCTV footage from the hotel when Susan's murder occurred. After that, Robert went to meet Dave in a park. In the conversation, he explained that he found some irregularities in the footage after he checked the hotel's CCTV footage. Robert was certain that Susan's murder was premeditated from the start. Robert then investigates the files from the case Susan was previously investigating to determine if Susan's murder had anything to do with the case. After studying all the files regarding the murder case of the husband and wife, Robert tries to pinpoint what happened when the murder took place. He imagined himself in the dining room with the victims at the time of the incident to identify all the possibilities for the murder that night. After that, Robert contacted Dave again and said that the person who had shot Calvert and his wife was left-handed. Robert felt sure that Susan had known who the perpetrators of the murder of the husband and wife were, so that the perpetrator killed her. The next day, when Robert has a side job as an online taxi driver, he finds a male passenger who looks suspicious and behaves strangely, and it turned out that Robert's guess was right. On the way, the man suddenly attacked Robert with a knife. Robert immediately acted by swerving in various directions so that the man lost his balance. He then hit the man in the face with his elbow several times. In a short time, Robert managed to fight back and immediately killed the man to death. After Robert took the man's cell phone for further investigation, he immediately set fire to his taxi and the man to eliminate evidence. The next day, Robert came to Dave's house to meet and tell him everything that had happened yesterday. He told Dave that there had been a man who wanted to kill him before, and he was sure that he was an agent who had been paid by the same perpetrators who killed Susan. Robert also said that he had investigated the man's cell phone and was able to find the phone number of the main culprit. Dave's cell phone suddenly rang when Robert called the main culprit's number. It turns out that the perpetrator of the murder of Calvert and his wife was Dave. He also killed Susan because he didn't want the fact that he was the main culprit of the murder case exposed. After Robert took the cell phone from him, he actually already knew that Dave was the culprit behind all this, but he didn't want to rush into arresting Dave and preferred to approach him calmly to ask him for an explanation. Dave did not explain the reason for all the murders, but he brought Robert together with 3 other men involved in the killings. Before Robert left, he warned Dave and his 3 comrades that he would definitely come back to kill them all. The next day, Dave and 3 of his friends came to Brian's house to kill Brian. Fortunately, Robert, who had previously predicted this, had already picked up Brian and brought him to a safe place. The scene changes to the moment when Miles is painting Robert's house's walls. Shortly after, Dave and his gang came to Robert's house to kill him. Miles realized something was wrong, started to panic, and immediately contacted Robert. Robert, who was on his way to his house, immediately turned on the surveillance camera from his cell phone. He then told Miles to hide in a secret room behind the bookshelf. After Miles enters, he tells Robert that he can see Dave and his gang through the 2-way mirror in the secret room. When Dave was about to shoot the mirror, Robert suddenly called Dave and said he was currently in a place that Dave also knew. After receiving the call, Dave and his gang immediately left Robert's house and went to the location that Robert had told them about. Moments later, Miles, who felt that the situation was safe, decided to immediately get out of the hiding place and leave Robert's house. But unfortunately, it turns out that Dave and his gang are still in the house. Dave then pointed his gun at Miles. The scene changes to the moment where Robert is driving his car to a city that had previously been his residence several years ago. Currently, the city is being evacuated because a big storm is hitting the city. Shortly after, Dave and his companions also arrived in the city. Dave barges in by force and shoots a policeman guarding the town. He and his friends then arrived in front of an empty house that used to be Robert's house. Dave and his colleagues have prepared themselves with complete and sophisticated weapons to face Robert, who is an expert on the battlefield. After checking every room in the house, Dave and his colleagues still couldn't find Robert's whereabouts. They even broke into every house beside Robert's house and scattered to find the location where Robert was. Dave then decided to go to a tall building to remotely monitor his other 3 colleagues. Meanwhile, his 3 other colleagues immediately split up to search every place to find Robert's whereabouts. However, with all the experience and abilities that Robert has as one of the best former personnel of the United States military, he has prepared the best tactics and strategies to deal with Dave and his colleagues. He has also predicted every possibility that will occur in the fight, as he has done in every fight. Robert begins to carry out his plan to kill all of Dave's gang one by one. At first, he kills one of Dave's colleagues named Kovac by using a gun that throws an arrow right at his head until he dies. After that, Robert secretly followed Dave's colleague Ari and immediately stabbed him repeatedly with a knife. After successfully killing Kovac and Ari, Robert then killed another of Dave's colleagues named Resnick with a grenade explosion. Now finally, Robert only needs to kill Dave to take revenge for the death of his best friend, Susan. When Dave almost kills Miles, who has been held hostage in his car, Robert shoots at the car's tire so that Dave's shot misses. When Dave tries to find Robert's whereabouts, it turns out that Robert is already in front of him. Robert and Dave ended up fighting each other, and the fight between them was quite fierce. After a long battle, Robert finally defeated Dave and his gang. After it all ended, Robert immediately took Miles out of the car's trunk and immediately took him to his house first. Robert recalled all his past memories in the house while looking at his wife's photo. The film closes with a scene where Miles is already an art school student and has become a talented artist. This film teaches us to be more careful and vigilant with people we have considered friends or co-workers. However, betrayal can happen to anyone at any time.